The morning sun bathed the small town in gold as everyone gathered at the church. Flowers hung from every arch. Laughter echoed through the courtyard, and the scent of roses filled the air. People whispered, "It's the wedding of the year." Emma stood before the mirror in her white gown, the lace shimmering like frost. She smiled, but it wasn't real. Beneath the layers of makeup and pearls, her heart pounded with dread. She heard the chatter of bridesmaids, the rustling of silk, and the sound of her mother's voice outside the door. "Emma, darling, they're all waiting." Emma took a deep breath, forcing a smile she didn't feel. As the doors opened and everyone rose to their feet, her eyes found Daniel's. The man she was marrying looked perfect, charming, confident, adored by everyone. But he wasn't the man she loved. The ceremony unfolded like a dream she couldn't wake from. Applause filled the air when they kissed. Cameras flashed and people cheered. Yet Emma's hands trembled. As the crowd shouted congratulations, she whispered under her breath, "I'm sorry." No one heard it except one person. At the back of the church, a man in a dark suit stood silently, his expression unreadable. His eyes met hers for a brief, haunting moment before he turned and disappeared into the sunlight. She knew then that this wasn't an ending. It was the beginning of something she could never undo. The guests gathered in the grand hall, clinking glasses and laughing as the newlyweds made their entrance. Emma smiled politely at every face, her cheeks aching from pretending. Daniel held her hand tightly, his grip almost possessive. "You're doing great," he whispered, but his tone felt like a warning. She nodded, her eyes scanning the crowd, searching for the man she had seen in the church. He was nowhere to be found. The night was a blur of speeches, music, and forced joy. When the first dance began, Daniel pulled her close. "We look happy, don't we?" he murmured. Emma swallowed hard, feeling the weight of hundreds of eyes on them. "We have to," she said softly. The song ended, and the applause felt hollow. Hours later, as the celebration faded and the lights dimmed, Emma slipped outside for air. The cold breeze hit her face, carrying the scent of the lake nearby. Then she saw it on the hood of a car, an envelope with her name in familiar handwriting. Her heart stopped. She looked around, but no one was there. With shaking hands, she opened it. Inside, a single line, "You still have a choice." Her breath caught in her throat. She stuffed the letter into her dress, terrified that Daniel might see. When she returned to the hall, he was waiting by the door, his eyes narrowing. "Where were you?" he asked. Emma smiled faintly. "Just needed some air." He didn't believe her, but he didn't push it. As the night ended, Emma lay awake beside him in their hotel room, staring at the ceiling, the words echoing in her mind. "You still have a choice." The laughter and music echoed through the reception hall, wrapping Emma like a cage made of gold. Everyone toasted, everyone smiled, and yet all she could feel was the suffocating weight of pretending. Daniel's arm was firm around her waist, guiding her through the crowd like she was a prized possession he needed to display. His smile never wavered, but his grip told a different story, one of control, not care. "Keep smiling," he whispered, the warmth in his tone carefully practiced. Emma obeyed. She had become good at obeying. The chandeliers glittered above them, reflecting in her eyes as she looked out across the room, searching for that face, the man she had seen in the church earlier, watching her from the back pew. But he was gone. Maybe he had never been there at all. The thought almost comforted her. When the band began playing their first dance, Daniel pulled her closer, his breath hot against her ear. "We look perfect," he said. "Don't ruin it." Emma's lips curved upward in a soft, hollow smile. "I wouldn't dare." They swayed to the rhythm as guests whispered about how beautiful they looked, how lucky she was, how perfect the match seemed. If only they knew. The applause at the end of the song felt like thunder in her skull. Hours later, when the lights dimmed and guests began to leave, Emma slipped outside, her heels crunching softly on the gravel. The air was sharp and cold, cutting through her layers of silk and lace. For the first time all night, she could breathe. That's when she saw a cream-colored envelope resting on the hood of a nearby car. Her name, Emma written in handwriting she knew too well. Her stomach dropped. She looked around, half expecting to see him Alex, but there was no one. Only the faint hum of the wind through the trees. With trembling fingers, she tore the envelope open. A single line stared back at her. You still have a choice. The world seemed to tilt. For a moment, everything music, laughter, lights blurred into nothing. Her heart pounded as she folded the note and slipped it into her dress just before. Daniel appeared in the doorway. "Where were you?" he asked, his tone sharp but quiet. "Just needed some air," she said, smiling as if nothing was wrong. His eyes studied her face for a moment before he finally nodded. But later that night, lying in the hotel bed beside the man she had just promised forever to, Emma couldn't sleep. She traced the edge of the folded paper hidden under her pillow, hearing those words over and over again. You still have a choice. For the first time in years. She dared to believe it might be true. The morning light spilled through the hotel curtains, painting soft lines across the sheets. Emma stared at the ceiling, her mind replaying the words from the note like a haunting melody. You still have a choice. Daniel was still asleep beside her, his breathing heavy, his hand possessively resting on her waist. Every detail of the night before the vows, the music, the applause felt distant, unreal. But that note, tucked inside her bag, felt more real than anything else in her life. She slipped out of bed, careful not to wake him, and stood before the mirror. The reflection staring back at her was flawless, the perfect bride. Perfect hair, perfect smile. Yet beneath the makeup, she saw the faintest trace of herself, the woman she used to be. The one who once believed in love, not appearances. Downstairs, the morning papers were already talking about their fairy tale wedding. Emma folded the newspaper and stepped outside into the crisp morning air. The street was empty except for a man sitting on a bench across the road, a coffee cup in his hand. She froze. Even from that distance, she recognized the posture, the tilt of his head. Alex, he looked up slowly, meeting her gaze, and for a moment, the world went silent. No cars, no footsteps, just two people frozen between what was and what could have been. She took a step forward before stopping herself. Daniel's voice echoed from behind her. "Emma," she turned. He was standing at the hotel entrance, still half-dressed, confusion on his face. "What are you doing out here?" She forced a smile. "Just needed some air." When she turned back, Alex was gone. That night, when Daniel finally left for a business dinner, Emma opened her laptop. The screen glowed in the dark as she stared at an email draft addressed to *alex.hartfield@gmail.com*. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. She typed one word, *y*, then deleted it. Typed another, *1, deleted that too. Finally, she wrote, *I got your note, *. She stared at it for a long time before hitting send. A soft chime confirmed it was gone. She closed the laptop and leaned back in her chair, heart pounding. She didn't know what she was expecting: an apology, an explanation, a plan, but what she felt most was something she hadn't felt in years: hope. When Daniel came home, she was already in bed, pretending to sleep. His footsteps echoed across the room, steady and heavy. As he climbed into bed, she kept her eyes closed, clutching the small piece of paper in her hand beneath the blanket. You still have a choice. For the first time, she believed she might take it. Days passed, but Emma couldn't stop thinking about that email. Every time her phone buzzed, her heart skipped only to sink when it wasn't him. Daniel, meanwhile, had already fallen back into his old rhythm: meetings, dinners, business calls that lasted past midnight. Emma's life shrank to quiet breakfasts and empty afternoons. Then, one evening, her phone finally lit up with an unfamiliar number. Her hand trembled as she answered. "Emma," a voice said softly. It was Alex, You shouldn't have written, he whispered. You're married now. You left a note, she replied, her voice barely steady. You wanted me to remember I had a choice. What did you mean by that? Silence. Then he sighed. I meant you still have time to be you. Before he takes that away, the line went dead. Emma sat there frozen, phone pressed to her ear, his words echoing in her chest. She didn't know what scared her more, the warning or the truth behind it. That night, Daniel noticed something different. You're distant lately, he said, pouring himself a drink. Everything okay? She nodded. Just tired, but he studied her closely, his eyes narrowing. You're not thinking about him again, are you? The glass slipped from her hand, shattering across the floor. What are you talking about? Don't play dumb, Emma, he said quietly, stepping closer. I saw the email. Her breath caught. You went through my computer. Our computer, he corrected, his tone dangerously calm. You don't get to have secrets from me. She stared at him, fury and fear twisting inside her. Maybe I should, he laughed under his breath. You wouldn't survive a week without me. She turned away, hiding her trembling hands. But inside, something was shifting. That night, she slept facing the wall, her body rigid, heart pounding. The next morning, Daniel was gone before sunrise, leaving behind a note of his own. Asterisk, don't do anything stupid. Asterisk. She crumpled it in her fist, then picked up her phone. She found Alex's number and typed, asterisk, meet me. I need to understand. Asterisk, minutes later, the reply came. Asterisk, tomorrow. The place where we first met. Asterisk, she sat there staring at the message, tears gathering in her eyes. Tomorrow, one word. But it carried all the weight of the life she'd lost and maybe the one she still could claim. The next day felt like walking through fog. Every sound, every glance seemed sharper, as if the world knew she was about to cross an invisible line. Emma dressed simply, her hands shaking as she buttoned her coat. When she looked in the mirror, she barely recognized the woman staring back. At the cafe where they'd first met, Alex was already there. His hair was shorter, his eyes tired but kind. You came, he said softly. I almost didn't, she admitted. Daniel found the email. Alex's jaw tightened. Did he hurt you? No, she whispered. But he could. He doesn't need to touch me to make me feel trapped. He reached across the table, his hand hovering over hers. Then leave, he said. You don't owe him your silence. She shook her head. It's not that simple. He made sure of it financially, emotionally. Everything I have is tied to him. That's not everything, Alex said firmly. You still have yourself. She looked away, tears blurring her vision. I'm not sure I know who that is anymore. For a while, they just sat in silence. The world moved around them, coffee cups clinking. Laughter, life continuing for everyone else. Finally, Alex spoke again. Remember when I told you that you were brave? That was before, she said. Before I became this. No, he said. You were brave then. You're braver now. You stayed alive in a place that tried to erase you. Something inside her cracked open at those words. She wanted to believe him, wanted to believe she could still change. What if I can't do it? She asked. What if I'm too late? He smiled sadly. Then you let the world decide for you. Is that what you really want? She didn't answer. Instead, she stood and looked out the window. The city outside was loud and alive, indifferent to her small storm. I'll call you, she said finally. I need to think. Don't take too long, Alex murmured. The longer you wait, the harder it becomes to remember who you were before him. When she left the cafe, the cold air hit her like a slap. For the first time in years, she didn't go home immediately. She walked through the city until her feet ached, until the fear turned into something else, resolve. As the sun set behind the buildings, Emma took out her phone and deleted every message from Daniel, every reminder of who he wanted her to be. The last thing she erased was his name. And for the first time in years, she smiled, not because she was free yet, but because she finally wanted to be. That night, Emma didn't go home. She found herself standing on a quiet street, the glow of streetlights reflecting off wet pavement. The city felt both dangerous and safe, like it could swallow her whole or carry her somewhere new. She booked a small hotel room, cheap, anonymous. As she sat on the edge of the bed, the silence pressed down on her. For years, she had dreamed of being alone, but now that it was real, the emptiness scared her. Her phone buzzed. Daniel. She stared at the screen, his name flashing like a warning. Then another message, asterisk, come home. We can talk, asterisk, a minute later. Asterisk, don't make me come find you. Asterisk, her pulse quickened. The familiar dread crawled back under her skin. But this time, something inside her refused to bend. She blocked his number. Her hands trembled, but she didn't stop. She turned off the phone, dropped it into her purse, and exhaled. The sound that escaped her lips wasn't fear, it was relief. The next morning, sunlight slipped through the thin curtains. For the first time in years, she woke without checking the time or listening for footsteps in the hallway. She opened the window, breathing in the cold air, and it felt like her lungs were learning to expand again. Later, she walked to a nearby park, bought a coffee, and sat watching the world move. Children laughed. Strangers argued. Life happened, and for once, she was part of it, not trapped behind glass. Then, from across the street, a familiar voice called her name. Emma. It was her sister, Grace. Shocked, Emma froze as Grace hurried toward her, eyes wide with disbelief. I've been looking for you, Grace said, tears glistening. Daniel called me. He said you disappeared. Emma's chest tightened. I needed to think, she said quietly. Grace took her hand. He's furious. Emma, please don't go back to him. Come home with me. The word asterisk home asterisk stung. She hadn't had one in years. Not really. I can't, she whispered. Not yet. Grace nodded slowly, understanding flickering in her eyes. Then at least promise me you'll be safe. I will, Emma said. But I have to figure out who I am before I go anywhere. They hugged tightly, years of silence melting between them. As Grace walked away, Emma felt something new hope. Maybe she didn't have a plan yet, but for the first time in forever, she didn't need one. She was already moving toward the life she deserved. The next few days blurred together in quiet defiance. Emma wandered the city with no destination, discovering corners she'd never noticed before, even though she'd lived there for years. She felt invisible but alive, as if shedding one life to slowly grow into another. At night, she wrote in an old notebook, pages filling with thoughts she had buried for so long. Words like asterisk freedom asterisk, asterisk fear asterisk, asterisk truth asterisk. Each letter felt like a rebellion. But freedom, she learned, wasn't silent for long. One morning, a knock shattered her fragile calm. The hotel manager stood there, uneasy. Mrs. Cole. The name stung Daniel's name. There's someone downstairs asking for you. Says he's your husband. Her blood ran cold. Tell him I'm not here. He's not leaving, the man murmured. He's been waiting since dawn. Emma's heartbeat thundered in her ears. She grabbed her bag, slipped out the back exit, and disappeared into the maze of city streets. She didn't know where she was going, only that she couldn't go back. She called Grace. He found me. Where are you? It doesn't matter. I can't keep running. Then stop running, Grace said firmly. Let him face what he's done. You're not the one who should be afraid. The words lit a spark inside her. For years, Daniel had made her feel small. But maybe the truth was that he was terrified of losing control. Emma went to the police station. Her hands trembled as she spoke, but her voice didn't break. She told them everything, the tracking, the threats, the manipulation. They listened, took notes, and promised protection. It wasn't victory, not yet, but it was the first time she'd been heard. Later, she sat in the waiting room, numb but lighter. She opened her notebook again and wrote, asterisk, I am not what he made me. I am what I choose next. Asterisk when Grace came to pick her up. Emma smiled faintly. I told them, she said. Grace squeezed her hand. You did more than that. You finally told yourself. And as they drove away, the city lights reflected in Emma's eyes not as bars, but as stars. The days after Emma went to the police passed in a strange mixture of relief and tension. Daniel didn't call. He didn't appear. For the first time in years, silence didn't feel like fear, it felt like possibility. Emma tried to fill her hours with ordinary things, walking through sunlit parks, drinking coffee in quiet cafes, even laughing at old jokes she hadn't dared to enjoy. But freedom had a strange echo. Every time her phone buzzed, every unexpected knock, her heart skipped. Memories of control still lingered like shadows. Then, one evening, a letter arrived at the hotel room Grace had booked. No stamp, no return address, just Emma's name written in a looping, familiar hand. She opened it slowly, hands trembling, and froze. Inside was a single photograph. Daniel, standing at the edge of a bridge, looking lost. On the back, a scrawled note. I can't do this without you. Come back. Emma's first impulse was to burn it, to forget it. But something inside her paused. She realized that her life, her choices were no longer about fear. They were about clarity. She showed the letter to Grace. What if he's really changed? She whispered. Grace shook her head. Emma, you didn't run away from him because he was bad once. You left because he tried to erase you. That hasn't changed. Don't let sympathy fool you. Emma took a deep breath. The next morning, she returned to the city streets not to hide, not to escape, but to claim them. She walked into the police station once more, not for protection this time, but to give a statement, clear, final, uncheckable. Then she returned to the hotel, packed her bags, and left without looking back. Daniel did appear one night, on the street where they first met. He called her name, but Emma didn't run. She stopped, looked at him, and for the first time spoke without fear. I am not yours to find, she said softly. I am mine. He tried to reach her, to explain, to beg, but Emma turned away, her heels clicking against the pavement, each step echoing the life she was building. Behind her, the city shimmered not as a cage, but as a canvas of endless possibilities. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, and for the first time, that uncertainty felt like freedom. Emma didn't celebrate the wedding she had fled. She celebrated herself. And in that quiet triumph, the world seemed to bend toward her, inviting her to take the life she had always deserved. Emma kept walking without stopping, the city lights dancing in her eyes. Every corner, every pavement stone, now held possibilities instead of the fear and helplessness of the past. The chains of the past were gone. Daniel's shadow was only a memory. She sat in a cafe, sipping her warm coffee, and opened her notebook, pouring out sentences she hadn't been able to write for so long. This is my story. No one owns me. Never did. She smiled as she wrote. The curve of her lips was the first real sign of freedom. Then she turned off her phone. No more messages. No more threats. No memories would disturb her peace. People on the streets didn't notice her, but it didn't matter. Emma was aware of her own life, walking in the power of her own choices. Crossing a bridge, the wind tossed her hair, and in that moment, she breathed deeply, truly feeling herself fearless, strong, and free. No one could make her feel small anymore. Emma had finally reclaimed the life she thought she'd lost. Every step, every glance echoed her own decisions. The city lights shone for her once more, but this time, they were the light of hope and courage, not captivity. Emma smiled, tucked her notebook into her bag, and continued walking forward on the path she chose. It was time to celebrate her own wedding, her own life, her own victory. And for the first time, the whole city wasn't living for her, she was living for herself.